Welcome back to the deep end. Today we are doing something a little different. Usually we look at how to optimize a specific part of your life, your diet, your portfolio, your sleep schedule. We look at the micro. But today we are zooming out.
Way out.
We are looking at the water we are all swimming in.
And honestly, it is getting pretty choppy out there.
That is the understatement of the century. We are tackling a topic that I think every single person listening right now feels in their gut, probably every Sunday night before the work week starts. That creeping sense of, am I doing enough?
Is my industry about to disappear?
Is an algorithm learning to do my job while I sleep? We are talking about fear.
But not just fear as a feeling. We aren't here to do a therapy session, though. Maybe we all need one. We are looking at fear as a structural economic force. We are breaking down The Journey Beyond Fear by John Hagel III.
And this book is fascinating because John Hagel isn't some guru floating on a cloud telling you to manifest abundance. This guy is, well, he's Silicon Valley royalty. He founded Deloitte Center for the Edge. He spent 40 years advising the biggest companies on earth, the titans of industry.
Right.
And his thesis is terrifyingly simple. The way we have been working for the last century is broken, and it is breaking us.
It is. He argues that we are caught in what he calls the big shift. And because we don't understand the physics of this shift, we are reacting with fear. And that fear is blinding us to the actual opportunities on the table.
So our mission today is to map that shift. We are going to look at why even the most successful companies are losing money faster than ever, which is a stat that absolutely blew my mind.
Oh, it's a shocking number. We have to get into it.
We're going to decode the difference between a story and a narrative, which is a distinction I honestly didn't get until I read this, and I thought I knew marketing.
It is a total game changer once you see it. It really is.
And finally, we're going to walk through his 3 pillars, narrative, passion, and platforms, to figure out how to stop hyperventilating and actually start building something cool. But before we get to the solution, we have to sit with the problem. Hagel starts the book with this really visceral image. He's driving down Highway 101 in Silicon Valley.
Right, the main artery of the tech world, the heart of it all.
And he sees a billboard, just a stark black billboard with white text. This was a few years ago. Do you remember what it said?
I do. It is an image that sticks with you. It asks a simple question. How does it feel to know that there are at least 1 million people around the world who can do your job?
I mean, talk about a punch to the gut. You're sitting in traffic, maybe feeling good about your promotion, and boom, the billboard reminds you that you are a commodity.
Instantly.
It immediately triggers that scarcity mindset. You think, I'm not safe, I have to work harder, I have to protect my turf. It's an injection of pure anxiety right into the commute.
And Hagel makes a crucial point about that billboard in the book.
Mm-hmm.
He says, that was maybe 10 years ago. If you put that billboard up today, in the 2020s, it wouldn't say 1 million people.
No.
It would say, how does it feel to know there are at least 1 million robots who can do your job?
Which is infinitely worse. Because the person in Bangalore or Poland or Brazil eventually needs to sleep. They need to eat. They might ask for a raise. The algorithm
doesn't sleep. It doesn't take coffee breaks. It just iterates. It gets smarter while you're on vacation.
Exactly. This is the backdrop of what Hagel calls the age of anxiety. We are under what he identifies as mounting performance pressure. And it's so important to validate this for everyone listening. It is not just in your head. You aren't just being neurotic.
No, this is a measurable economic phenomenon. It's real.
That's what I wanted to dig into, because it's easy to dismiss this as, oh, every generation thinks they have it hard. My grandfather worked in a coal mine. I type on a laptop in an air-conditioned office. Do I really have a right to complain about pressure?
You do, but it's a different species of pressure. It's not physical exhaustion in the same way. It's psychological and existential. Hegel points out that for most of the 20th century, if you learned a skill, say accounting or welding or legal contract writing, that asset held its value for 30 or 40 years.
Right. You could build a whole career on it.
You could ride that one skill to a pension. It was the learn it once, apply it forever model. You get the degree, you get the gold watch, you're set.
So knowledge was a durable asset.
A very durable asset. Today, the half-life of a learned skill is estimated to be about 5 years.
5 years? That's nothing.
5 years. So every 5 years, your asset, your core career knowledge, depreciates to near zero, unless you are constantly aggressively upgrading it. That creates a background hum of panic. You can never stop running. And that feeling, that is the defining emotion of the big shift.
Okay, so we feel this personally. We see it on billboards. But Hagel is a data guy. He didn't write this book based on vibes. He brings receipts. And the scariest receipt, the one we have to spend some time on, is something called the return on assets, or ROA.
Hmm.
Now, I know when people hear finance terms, their eyes glaze over, but we need to unpack this because it explains everything.
It really is the smoking gun of the global economy. It's the chart that should be on every CEO's wall.
So, for those who, maybe skipped Finance 101, can we define ROA simply?
Sure. Return on assets is basically a measure of efficiency. It asks a simple question. If a company has $1 million in stuff factories, computers, inventory, cash, state, those are the
Like the
assets?
things they own to do business.
Exactly. How much actual profit can they squeeze out of that $1 million worth of stuff? It is the scorecard for corporate health. A higher ROA means you're really good at using your resources to make money.
Okay, so let's look at the timeline. The last 50, 60 years. We have the computer revolution. We have the internet revolution. We have the smartphone. We have global supply chains. We have AI. Logic dictates that companies should be massively more efficient now.
That's the intuitive assumption.
Right. We should be printing money with less effort than ever before.
Technology equals efficiency. That's what we've been told for decades. But Hagel looked at the data for all U.S. public companies from 1965 to roughly 2019, and the trend line isn't going up.
So, it's not flat.
It is crashing. ROA has declined by 75% over that period.
Wait, 75%? Hold on, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds like a depression, not a tech boom. How is that even possible?
It is a slow-motion collapse.
Yeah.
And it is consistent. It's not like, oh, there were a few bad years in 2008. It is a steady, relentless downward slide for 5 decades, through Republican and Democrat administrations, through booms and busts.
I am really struggling to wrap my head around this. We have computers that can do in a second what used to take a team of people a week. How are companies making less money on their assets?
This is where we have to understand the power dynamics of the big shift. In the 20th century, who had the power? The companies did. Why? Because they had the information.
Okay.
If you wanted to buy a car, you had to go to the dealer, and the dealer knew the invoice price, the kickbacks, everything, and you didn't. They held all the cards.
Right. That's information asymmetry. They knew I didn't, so I paid more.
Exactly. But digital technology completely destroyed that. Now, information is ubiquitous. The customer has all the power. You can stand in a Best Buy, scan a barcode on a TV, and see instantly that it's $50 cheaper on Amazon or at a competitor across the street.
And you can read 10,000 reviews in 10 seconds.
Right. So the ability for companies to charge a premium for anything,
Evaporated.
it evaporated. Margins get ground down to zero because the customer can always find a cheaper, better, faster option instantly. There's no friction anymore.
So technology made us, the consumers, smarter and more powerful, but it made it much, much harder for them to make a profit.
Precisely. And at the exact same time, competition became global. It used to be you competed with the guy across town. Now, thanks to global logistics and the internet, you are competing with the best companies in China, India, Germany, everywhere, all at once.
It's just relentless pressure from all sides.
So you have companies running faster and faster, adopting all this new tech, building these global supply chains, just to stay in the same place.
It's the Red Queen effect from Alice in Wonderland. It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place.
That's it, exactly. And this explains the fear. If you are a CEO looking at that ROA chart, looking at that 75% drop, you are terrified. You know that one misstep, one bad quarter means you are dead. Hagel cites the topple rate, the rate at which big market-leading companies lose their leadership position. That has skyrocketed too.
So the stability is gone. The moats have all been drained.
The moats are gone. So the CEO is terrified, which means the VP is terrified, which means the middle manager is terrified.
And that flows all the way down to you, the listener, checking your email at 10 p.m. on a Saturday.
That's the transmission mechanism. The system is transmitting fear because the system itself is failing to generate value the way it used to.
Okay, that paints a pretty grim picture. I mean, the water is rising and the boat has a hole in it. But before we get to how we fix the boat, I want to talk about John Hagel himself. Because usually when I read business strategy books, the author feels very sterile. Here are my 5 steps to success.
Detached.
Academic.
Yeah. But Hegel puts his own trauma on the page. And it's not for shock value. It's central to his whole argument.
It is incredibly brave, and honestly, it's necessary. He uses his own life as the case study for moving from fear to opportunity. If you don't understand his childhood, you can't understand his theory.
So paint the picture for us. He's a kid in the 1950s. On paper, he is living the dream. His dad is a senior executive at Mobil Oil. They are traveling the world, Venezuela, Turkey, Lebanon, everywhere. He has privilege, he has access, he's seeing the world. But inside the house, it is a war zone.
What was happening behind closed doors?
His mother, she was this brilliant, highly educated woman who had ambitions to work for the State Department, which was a huge deal for a woman in the 1940s. A trailblazer.
Oh, wow, okay.
But she gave it all up for his father's career. She became the trailing spouse, moving from country to country, unable to build her own career.
And that sacrifice didn't sit well.
It curdled into bitterness and rage.
Mm.
Hegel describes these terrifying episodes where she would just lash out, shouting at him, telling him she wished he had never been born.
Jesus. That is heavy.
Yeah, the direct quote he uses is, "Life would be simpler without you." Imagine hearing that as a 7-year-old from your own mother.
Unthinkable. And the father. Where was he in all this?
His father, who was this gentle soul by nature, couldn't handle the conflict. He was a conflict avoider. So he just withdrew. He would hide in his study with his stamp collection and eventually fell into alcoholism and pain pills. He'd just check out.
So John is trapped. He's caught between a mother who is actively attacking him and a father who is passively abandoning him.
It is the ultimate high-pressure environment. He was living in a state of constant, unpredictable threat. He couldn't trust the people who were supposed to protect him. His home was the most dangerous place he could be.
And this is where the concept of narrative, which is his first pillar, starts to bubble up for him, right? Because he needed a way out. He had to find an escape hatch.
He did. He couldn't physically escape, so he mentally escaped. He found science fiction.
The golden age of sci-fi. Asimov, Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke.
Exactly. He started devouring these books. And you have to notice the contrast here. His reality, his home, was volatile, scary, and seemingly hopeless. It was a zero-sum game of emotional survival,
A threat-based world.
a total threat-based world. But in the books, humans were solving problems. They were traveling to the stars. They were collaborating, using technology to expand potential, not just to survive. It was all about opportunity.
He was literally rewriting his own context. He was choosing to live in a different world mentally.
He was building a mental fortress, as he calls it. He realized, even as a child, that there was another way to look at the future, not as a threat to be endured, but as an unexplored frontier to be, well, explored. And that childhood coping mechanism eventually became the framework for his entire business philosophy.
He realized you can choose the story you live in.
You can choose your narrative, and that choice changes everything.
That brings us perfectly to the first pillar of his solution. We have the context, the big shift, the fear, the pressure. Now, how do we break out? Hegel proposes 3 pillars: narrative, passion, and platforms. Let's start with narrative. He calls it the catalyst.
Right, because you can have all the energy in the world, you can have all the passion, but if you don't know where you're going, you're just running in circles. Narrative sets the direction. It's the compass.
Now, I have to be the skeptic here. When I saw narrative as the first solution to a global economic crisis, I rolled my eyes a little.
I get it.
I worked in marketing. Everything is a brand narrative. It feels like fluff. Just tell a better story and your stock price will go up. It seems so soft.
And Hegel anticipates that cynicism.
Yeah.
He is very, very aggressive about redefining the word. He says most people and most companies confuse story with narrative. And they are not the same thing at all. This is the most crucial distinction in the whole book.
Okay, hit me with it. What is a story?
A story is self-contained. It is about someone else, somewhere else, at some other time. Think of Hamlet, or a biopic about Steve Jobs, or a case study about how Ford built a car in 1920.
It have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right. The conflict is resolved. You, the listener, are just a passive observer. You're outside the frame looking in.
I watch the movie, I eat my popcorn, I learn a lesson, I go home. The story doesn't need me to exist.
Exactly. The story is done. A narrative, in Hegel's definition, is completely different. It's open-ended. There is no resolution yet. And here is the critical difference. It is about us. It's about right here, right now. It is a call to action.
Ah,
The ending of the narrative depends entirely on the choices we make. It's an invitation.
that is a subtle but powerful shift. A story is, look what happened. A narrative is, what are we going to make happen?
Yes, a narrative puts the listener inside the frame. It says, we're in a difficult spot, the outcome is not guaranteed, and I need your help to get us to the promised land. It creates agency.
And he breaks this down into 2 fundamental types, which you can see everywhere once he points them out: threat-based narratives and opportunity-based narratives.
And this is where you can start auditing your own life and your own workplace. A threat-based narrative is the default setting for most of the world right now. The enemy is at the gates. The robots are stealing our jobs. Our competitor just launched a new product and they're going to eat our lunch.
Or in a company, if we don't cut costs by 10% this quarter, there will be layoffs.
Exactly.
Oh,
And it worked to get people moving right.
yeah.
Fear is a hell of a motivator. If a bear is chasing me, I run fast.
You don't have to tell me twice.
You run fast, but you run in a straight line, and you eventually collapse. Fear motivates short-term survival, but it creates tunnel vision. It forces that zero-sum thinking we talked about. If the narrative is there are only 5 lifeboats, I am not going to help you build a raft.
I'm going to kick you off the boat.
I'm going to kick you off the boat and take your life vest. It destroys trust and collaboration.
So what's the alternative? An opportunity-based narrative.
An opportunity-based narrative is different. It starts with a vision of a better future. It says, there is a magnificent possibility out there. It is hard to reach. I don't have all the answers. But if you join me, we can build something that has never existed before.
The classic example here is Kennedy, right? The moonshot.
It is the gold standard of an opportunity narrative. Think about the rhetoric he used. Kennedy didn't say we have to build a rocket because the Russians are scary and they might bomb us from the moon. I mean, that was the geopolitical subtext. Sure, that was the threat.
But that's not what he led with.
No. The narrative he sold the country was, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
He framed the difficulty as the benefit. The challenge was the prize.
Exactly. He invited every engineer, every mathematician, every factory worker, every kid in a science class to be part of a grand quest to expand human potential. It was an open-ended invitation to innovate. And because of that narrative, people worked harder and more creatively than they ever would have for a simple beat the Russians threat narrative.
Let's bring this down to the corporate level, because most of us aren't JFK. How do companies use this? Hagel points to Apple as a prime example of an institutional narrative.
Apple is fascinating because their narrative has never ever really been about the computer specs.
True, the famous 1984 ad didn't mention clock speeds or RAM or hard drive space.
The Think Different campaign didn't either. Think Different was a narrative that said, the world is trying to make you a cog in the machine. It is trying to crush your individuality. We are here to give you the tools to fight back, to create, to be an artist, to unleash your potential.
So the hero of the Apple narrative isn't the iPhone, it's the user.
Bingo. The phone is just the sword you use to slay the dragon of conformity. That is a powerful opportunity-based narrative. It invites you to become a better version of yourself. Now compare that to a company whose narrative is, we offer the lowest prices.
That's a transaction. I give you money, you give me cheap toilet paper. There's no transformation there.
It's a transaction, and it's a race to the bottom. There is no emotional hook, no invitation to become something more. And in the big shift, where products become commodities almost instantly, if you don't have a narrative, you are just selling commodities, and you're dead.
He also mentions geographical narratives, which I found really unique. The idea that a city or a region speaks to you, that it has its own narrative.
Oh, absolutely. Places have narratives just like people do. Think about the narrative of Silicon Valley versus the narrative of, say, the Rust Belt.
Even the names tell the story. Silicon versus Rust.
Exactly. The term Rust Belt is a threat and decay narrative. It says, our best days are behind us. The factories are rusting. The jobs are gone. If you grow up hearing that, it shapes your horizon of possibility. It tells you that your only hope is to hold on to what's left, to fight for the scraps.
It breeds hopelessness and resentment.
It does. Now, what does the Silicon Valley narrative say?
This is where the future is invented. If you have a crazy idea, bring it here. Failure is just a badge of honor on the way to your IPO.
It is a narrative of limitless potential. And here is the key. That narrative becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it attracts the people who believe in it. The optimists, the builders, the dreamers move to the valley. And that concentration of talent then makes the narrative even more true.
So if I'm listening to this, the first practical step is to ask myself, what is the voice in my head saying? What is the narrative of my own career?
That is the critical question. Hegel suggests we all have a default narrative. For many of us, it is a very quiet, very persistent threat narrative. I need to work hard to accumulate enough money so I can be safe and then retire without going broke.
The survival narrative. Don't mess up.
It's deeply ingrained, but it is limiting. It's about minimizing downside, not maximizing upside. Hegel talks about shifting his own personal narrative. He realized that for years, his narrative was, I am an expert. I know things you don't. Hire me, and I will fix your problem.
Which is the standard consultant model. I am the smart guy with the answers.
It is. But he realized it was isolating. It puts all the pressure on him to be the smartest guy in the room. And in a world that changes this fast, nobody can be the smartest guy in the room forever. It's a fragile identity.
So what did he shift it to?
He shifted it to, I am an explorer. I see these massive changes coming, and I don't have all the answers. I want to build a community where we can figure it out together.
That is vulnerable. That's a big shift from I have the answers.
It is vulnerable, but it is magnetic. People want to join an explorer on a quest. They don't necessarily want to just be lectured by an expert. It's an invitation again.
So the narrative is the catalyst. It points the ship. It says, we are going over there to that exciting new place. But a ship needs an engine. You can't get to the moon just by looking at it and talking about it.
You need thrust.
And that brings us to pillar 2, passion.
Passion. The fuel.
Now, passion is another one of those words that has been completely ruined by Instagram and bad graduation speeches.
Oh, absolutely.
Follow your passion. It usually translates to quit your stable job and try to sell macrame on Etsy.
Right. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, which is, of course, complete nonsense. You'll work harder than ever.
Total nonsense. But Hegel is not talking about hobbies, and he's not talking about just having fun. He defines a very specific psychotype called the passion of the explorer.
And to understand it, he first distinguishes it from 2 other types of passion. This taxonomy is really helpful. First, there's the passion of the player.
The player. Who is that?
Think of kids on a playground, or the guy who lives for a Saturday morning golf game. They are passionate, sure, they are excited, but it is episodic. It is about the enjoyment of the moment. They enjoy the game, but they aren't trying to fundamentally change the sport of golf.
It's consumption of an experience. It doesn't lead to sustained, long-term impact.
Exactly.
Ah.
Then you have the second type, which is much more common in the business world, the passion of the true believer.
This sounds religious, almost fundamentalist.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it also exists in very rigid corporate cultures. The true believer has passion, but it is a passion for certainty. They know the destination. They have the rule book. They have the process manual. Their passion is converting you to their side. This is the one true way to do things.
That sounds like a lot of corporate bureaucrats I know. Follow the process. Do not deviate. We've always done it this way.
Right? They are passionate about the process. But that rigidity is incredibly dangerous in the big shift. If the world changes, your rule book doesn't, you break. The explorer is the third and most valuable type.
The passion of the explorer.
The explorer is deeply committed to a domain. They love their field, whether it's coding or woodworking or biochemistry, but they are obsessed with the unknown. They're drawn to the edge of the map. They don't know exactly where they are going, but they're excited to find out.
I love the matrix he uses here to visualize this. He says the explorer is high on commitment to domain impact, but also high on desire to explore boundaries.
That is the sweet spot. If you just have the desire to explore but no commitment, you're a dabbler. You jump from thing to thing without ever getting good at anything.
Shiny object syndrome.
Right. If you have the commitment but no desire to explore, you're a bureaucrat. You're just maintaining the status quo. The explorer combines the grit of the expert with the curiosity of the novice.
So what are the ingredients? If I want to know if I have this explorer's passion, what am I looking for in the mirror? How does it manifest?
He breaks it down into 3 distinct traits. Number 1 is a questing disposition.
Questing disposition. That sounds epic. What does it mean practically on, like, a Tuesday morning?
It means how you react to a surprise or a problem. When a normal employee sees a giant, unexpected problem land on their desk, the supply chain just broke, the server just crashed, a huge client threatening to leave, they groan. They feel anxiety. They want to get back to stability as quickly as possible.
Great, my weekend is ruined. That's the feeling.
Exactly. The explorer sees that same exact problem and thinks, juicy.
Juicy. I like that. They see a dragon and they want to slay it.
They see a dragon and they realize, oh, this is a chance to test my skills. This is a chance to learn something new that no one else knows.
Yeah.
They run toward the friction. They actively look for dragons to slay because without the challenge, they get bored.
Okay, that's a great litmus test. So what's ingredient number 2?
Connecting disposition. This is crucial. The old myth of the lone genius tinkering in the basement is dead. The problems we face today, climate change, AI ethics, global logistics, are too big and complex for one brain.
Way too big.
The explorer knows this in their bones. So their first instinct when they find a dragon isn't to draw their sword alone.
It's to call for backup.
It's to turn around and shout, "Hey, who else sees this thing? Who has a map? Who knows how to fight fire? Who has seen a dragon like this before?" They build trust networks instantly and instinctively. They view other people not as competitors, that zero-sum fear again, but as necessary allies in the quest.
They build the guild before they fight the monster.
They build the guild. That's a great way to put it. And the third ingredient is long-term commitment. This isn't a fling. This isn't a hobby for a weekend. This is a deep desire to make an increasing impact in a specific domain over years or even decades. That long-term view gives them the resilience to handle the inevitable failures and setbacks.
I want to push on this a bit, playing devil's advocate. In a corporate setting, or even for an entrepreneur, isn't this passion just a fancy word for workaholism or obsession? I'm an explorer, so I work 100 hours a week and neglect my family.
That is a vital distinction. And Hegel spends a lot of time separating passion from obsession. Obsession is usually fear-based. You are obsessed with your work because you are hiding from something else in your life. Or you are obsessed with the status the work gives you, the external validation.
So if I lose the job, I lose my soul. My identity is wrapped up in the title.
Right. The identity is fragile. If the project fails, you are a failure. Passion, true explorer's passion, is generative. It gives you energy rather than just taking it. And because it is focused on the domain and the impact, not just the title or the company, it is more flexible and resilient.
So if you lose your job at company A, you just take your passion for renewable energy to company B. Your identity is internal, not external.
Exactly. And he also distinguishes it from ambition. Ambition is extrinsic. I want to be VP by 30. I want the corner office and the big bonus. Relationships become transactional. What can you do for my career? Passion is intrinsic. You do the work because the work itself is rewarding. You'd probably do it even if you weren't getting the big bonus. Relationships are trust-based, not transactional.
So we have the narrative, which is the map, and the passion, which is the fuel. But now we hit a massive wall, the workplace. Because, let's be real, most jobs are not designed for explorers. They are designed for compliance.
No, they are not. They are actively hostile to explorers. And Hegel cites a stat that is just, it's depressing. Only 14% of the U.S. workforce has the passion of the explorer.
14%. That implies that 86% of us are either bored, burnt out, or just punching the clock. Why is it so low? Are humans just lazy? Is that the answer?
No, absolutely not. Humans are naturally curious. Look at any 5-year-old. They're all explorers. They're constantly asking why and taking things apart. The problem isn't the people, it's the container. Hegel argues our companies were designed to kill passion.
Designed to kill it? That sounds like a conspiracy.
But it's not a malicious conspiracy. It's a historical design flaw. Our corporate model was built in the early 20th century. It's based on a single powerful idea: scalable efficiency.
Scalable efficiency. Okay, break that down for me.
Think of a Ford assembly line in 1920. The goal is to produce 1 million Model Ts, all identical, as cheap as possible. To do that, you need total predictability. You eliminate all variation. You write a script, a detailed process for every single worker. Turn this bolt 3 times every 10 seconds. No more, no less.
You don't want the guy on the line getting creative with the bolt. That would mess up the whole line.
Exactly. In a scalable efficiency model, passion is a bug, not a feature. If worker stops the line to ask, "Why are we doing it this way? I have an idea. Could we do it better?" Wait, they're costing you money. You want compliance. You want a robot made of meat.
A robot made of meat. Wow. But we aren't building Model Ts anymore.
No, but our management structures, our hierarchies, our job descriptions, our performance reviews are still built on that old chassis. We still have rigid hierarchies. We still have best practices manuals that tell you exactly what to do. We still value predictability over everything else. That environment suffocates the explorer.
The explorer wants to experiment. The system wants them to comply.
And the system always wins. This is the core tension. And it explains the ROA collapse. We are efficiently executing a model that doesn't work in a world of rapid change.
We're getting better and better at doing the wrong thing.
That's a perfect summary. So we need to shift from scalable efficiency to scalable learning. In the 21st century, the only sustainable advantage is learning faster than the competition.
So the goal of the company shifts from make things cheaper to learn things faster.
Right. Instead of an assembly line, think of a jazz band or a special ops team. Everyone is a master of their instrument, everyone knows the goal, but how they get there is improvised based on what is happening in the moment. It's about responsive learning, not rigid execution.
This sounds great in theory. I love the idea. But if I work at a giant insurance firm with 50,000 employees and I walk into the CEO's office and say, let's stop being efficient and start exploring like a jazz band, security's going to escort me out of the building.
Laughs. And rightly so, because the immune system of the corporation will attack you. Big companies are designed to crush variability and risk. If you try to change the core business overnight, the antibodies, the middle managers, the compliance officers, the budget approvers will mobilize and kill the initiative.
So how do you turn the Titanic without hitting the iceberg?
You don't turn the Titanic. You launch a fleet of speedboats. Hagel has a brilliant strategy for this called scaling the edge.
Scaling the edge. Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that.
You acknowledge that the core business is rigid and efficient. You don't try to change it yet. You find an edge. This is a new market, a new technology, a new customer demographic that's growing very quickly, something that has the potential to be huge in the future, but is currently small in revenue, so it's flying under the radar of the main business.
Okay, a skunkworks project. I've heard of that.
Sort of, but with a very specific structure. Usually, skunkworks are kept secret and then get folded back into the main company, where their new ideas promptly die. Hagel says you create this edge group, and you staff it only with explorers.
The 14%. You find them.
You find your 14%, you recruit them from inside or outside, you put a leader in charge who reports only to the CEO, bypassing all the frozen middle layers of management, and you let them operate with completely different metrics. They aren't measured on short-term profit, they are measured on learning speed and trajectory of impact.
So they are the speedboats, allowed to operate by different rules.
They are the speedboats, and here is the key. You don't just keep it as a side project forever. The goal is for the edge to grow so fast and become so profitable that it eventually starts pulling resources, talent, and attention from the core. Eventually, the edge becomes the new core.
You don't force the old guard to change, you just outgrow them until they have no choice but to join the new thing.
It is seduction, not conquest. You demonstrate a better way until the old guard says, hey, I want to be on the winning team. It's an evolutionary strategy, not a revolutionary one.
That is smart. It's practical. Okay, so we have the narrative, the map, the passion, the fuel, and the edge strategy for the workplace. Now we need the accelerant. Pillar 3, platforms.
And again, just like with narrative and passion, we need to redefine our terms here.
Because when I hear platform, my brain immediately goes to Facebook, or Twitter, or TikTok. I think doom scrolling and arguing with strangers and cat videos.
Right, the social platforms. Hagel actually categorizes platforms into 3 buckets to make this clear. First, you have aggregation platforms like Amazon or eBay. They are transactional. They are very efficient for buying stuff, but they aren't for changing your life.
Useful but transactional. Got it.
Then you have the social platforms like Facebook or Instagram. They connect people, but often the connection is shallow or distracting or performative. It's about catching up, not building something new. Hagel argues the new model, the one we desperately need, is the learning platform.
A learning platform? Is that like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning where I go to watch videos?
No, that's still just digital content distribution. That's what he would call learning about. It's passive. Hagel wants platforms for learning to do. It's about action, not just consumption.
Okay, what's the difference? Give me an example.
A learning platform connects people not just to chat, but to solve problems together in the real world. The entire purpose of the platform is to help groups of people accelerate their performance improvement through cycles of action and reflection.
Okay, give me a concrete example because this feels a little abstract.
He uses a surprising one from the gaming world. World of Warcraft.
The video game with the orcs and elves.
Really?
Yes. Think about the structure of a high-level raid in that game. You have a boss monster that is incredibly, fiendishly difficult to beat. No single player can do it. You need a highly coordinated team of 25 or 40 people.
You need healers, tanks, damage dealers. Everyone has a specific interdependent role.
Exactly. And you don't have a manual. The game developers don't tell you how to win. So what happens? You go in, you fight, and you get wiped out. You fail instantly and spectacularly.
So you die.
You die. But then what happens next is the magic. You respawn, you get in the group chat on Discord, you say, okay, what happened? The tank died too fast, we need to heal sooner. The wizard needs to stand over there to avoid the fireball. You debrief. You do an after-action report.
You debrief. You look at the data. The platform gives you incredible data on damage per second, healing rates, everything. You adjust your strategy, you try again and again and again. You are learning through action in rapid, real-time cycles. That is a learning platform.
And it's a high-trust environment where failure is cheap, feedback is instant, and collaboration is absolutely mandatory.
You nailed it. Now contrast that with the corporate world. If you fail the raid, if you botch the big product launch, what
To
happens?
get fired, or at least you get a bad performance review and your career stalls.
Right. The cost of failure is enormous, so no one takes risks. In the game, risk is encouraged because that's the only way you learn the mechanics. Hegel argues we need to build these kinds of structures in our professional lives. Small groups, he calls them impact groups of 3 to 15 people, connected by a platform that gives them real-time data on their performance and helps them learn faster together.
He gives a corporate example, too, for those who don't play video games. The SAP Developer Network.
Right. This started as a simple Q&A forum, a help desk. How do I fix this bug in the SAP software? But because the developers were passionate explorers, it evolved. They started saying, hey, if I take your code snippet and mix it with my code snippet, we can build a completely new feature that SAP management hasn't even thought of yet.
So it went from fixing problems to creating new value.
Exactly. The platform became a creation engine. It wasn't just managing existing knowledge. It was creating new knowledge at the edges. That is the holy grail of a learning platform.
And Hegel is actually trying to build this now, right? He's not just writing about it.
He is. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He calls them activation centers. He wants to build platforms specifically designed to help people find their narrative, connect with their guild of fellow explorers, and start scaling their edge. He wants to industrialize the process of unlocking human potential.
So let's land the plane. We've covered a lot of heavy theory here. We've talked about the big shift, the 75% collapse in ROA, the difference between story and narrative, the explorer's passion, and the learning platform. But I'm imagining the listener right now. They're stuck in traffic or they're at the gym. They're thinking, this sounds amazing, but I have a mortgage. I have a boss who is definitely not an explorer. What do I do on Tuesday morning?
It's the million-dollar question. And you're right, you can't just quit and say, I'm going to the moon. Hegel offers a very practical, step-by-step roadmap for the individual. It starts with an audit.
Step 1, audit your narratives.
You have to get brutally honest with yourself. Sit down with a piece of paper and ask, what is the story I am telling myself about my future, about my career? Is it a threat story? I hope I don't get laid off. I need to beat my coworker for that promotion. Or is it an opportunity story? I am building the skills for something cool and new.
And you have to look at your company's narrative, too.
Crucial point. If you are an explorer trapped in a company with a strong threat narrative, a company that is just cutting costs and is ruled by fear, you are going to suffer. You are trying to bloom in toxic soil. You might need to find a new environment, or at least a new corner of that company where you can breathe.
Okay. Step 2, the childhood audit. This one I love because it feels like therapy.
It is a little bit. Look back at what truly excited you as a child between the ages of, say, 5 and 10. And don't focus on the specific activity. Maybe you like playing with Legos, but that doesn't mean you have to be an architect. But look at how you played.
What were the underlying elements?
Exactly. Did you like following the instructions perfectly to build the model on the box? Or did you like throwing the instructions away and smashing all the pieces together to build a spaceship? If you like building the spaceship, you have the explorer's gene. You have that questing disposition. Reconnect with that energy. That is your fuel source.
Step 3, find your edge.
Where can you experiment safely? It doesn't have to be your whole job. In fact, it shouldn't be at first. Is there a project nobody cares about? A committee? A side hustle? A volunteer opportunity? Find the place where the rules are a little loose and you can try new things without asking for a lot of permission. That is your laboratory.
Step 4, form a cell.
This is the most important practical step. Do not try to change the world alone. That is a recipe for burnout and disillusionment. Find 2 or 3 people, your own little guild, who share your interest and your disposition.
Just 2 or 3. It doesn't have to be a movement.
That's all you need to start. Meet for coffee once a week. But, and this is a critical point, don't meet just to complain about the boss. That's a venting session, not a cell. Meet to strategize. What are we building? What did we learn this week? How can I help you with your dragon?
It changes the dynamic from venting to planning. It's forward-looking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, step 5, small moves.
Small moves, smartly made. He repeats that phrase a lot.
Because it's key. Don't quit your job tomorrow in a blaze of glory. Test, learn, pivot. Just like the edge strategy for companies, use the edge strategy for your own life. Build the new you on the side, on your edge, until it is strong enough to become the main you. It's a process of evolution.
It's incredible stuff. It really reframes the anxiety we're all feeling. It suggests it's not something to be medicated away or ignored. It's a signal.
It's a signal that we're using the old operating system in a new world. The big shift isn't going away. The pressure isn't going to stop. We can't turn back the clock to 1950. That world is gone.
So we have a choice.
We have a fundamental choice.
Mm-hmm.
We can choose fear, which leads to burnout, zero-sum thinking, and shrinking horizons, or we can choose passion, specifically the passion of the explorer, which leads to learning, growth, and expanding potential.
It reminds me of Hegel's own journey, the scared kid reading sci-fi in his room to escape the yelling downstairs, ultimately becoming this global thought leader, building platforms for millions. He lived the shift.
He took the intense pressure of his childhood and learned how to turn it into fuel. And he genuinely believes, that our potential as individuals and as a species is limitless if we can just unlock these three pillars:
Narrative, passion, platforms.
the catalyst, the fuel, and the accelerant.
So here's the final thought for you to chew on today. Hegel asks a question in the book that I think is the perfect place to leave this deep dive. He asks, what call to action will you issue to the world?
Not just what job will you do or what will you sell, but what call to action will you issue? Because remember, a narrative isn't about you. It's an invitation for others to join you on a quest.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Go find your guild. Go slay some dragons. We'll see you next time.
See you then.